Well, hello there. If you can hear me above the noise of birds squawking, aeroplanes soaring, and the dainty footsteps of joggers, then we'll begin. Don't dare squawk during this recording. Okay, this is the second intro I've had to do, because I did a big long intro there, and as I kind of looked when I'd finished, the camera was set to photo instead of video. It recorded nothing. Oh, how I hate this camera. Anyway, today we've got an adventure. I'm in the old village of Cramond, and as you can perhaps see behind me, there's an island called Cramond Island in the middle of the Firth of Forth. That's where we're going. The plan for today's adventure is to trek over the causeway towards the island, maybe hang about for half an hour or something. We'll have a chat, maybe eat something, and then we'll finish with a song. And there'll probably be a few of you out there thinking, not another of Eddie's songs. Well, yeah, like it or lump it. You can't mess about with tide times at Cramond Island, because there has been people that have been trapped out here. They can't get back because the tides come in. So you can't mess about here. I've checked tide times. Low tide at Leith, which is more or less here, is at 11:07. I think it's about 10:30, 11:15 just now. Ideally, you want to be setting out an hour or so before low tide, because once it gets to low tide, the tide then starts coming in. There is a notice board just on my right giving safe times, safe crossing times for particular dates. I think it gives up until 1:20 today or something like that. So we're going to be okay, but I'll be keeping a close eye on the level of the water as it starts to rise. When I was very young and foolish, I did end up spending the night on this island. But I'll explain more about that when we go over there. These days I'm old and foolish. And I think that's a bit... isn't this really what you want when you're lugging a camera about the place? I'm not sure if you can see it. Somewhere behind me there's a tractor that's throwing up clouds of sand. I don't know if it's flattening the sand or scooping up jobbies, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to keep the camera in a plastic bag, I think, just to protect it. Enough chat, let's get out there. constant noise of aeroplanes. There's a slightly scary bit there, this sort of junction between the kind of cobbled track and this, which I think is actually just a pipeline. It's not a path, you know, this isn't a recognised sort of footpath out to the island. And the bit back there was scary because, and the rocks are still wet, it's very slippy. You could just, yeah, it's a little bit wary coming down there. Hopefully I've dried off more when I go back. There's no getting away from the fact that it's really rather lovely out here. It's beautiful, in fact, you know. You can see all sorts of things. Across the Firth of Forth and Blackness Castle, Queensferry Crossing Bridge. Wow. Yeah, you can see the skeleton of Granton's old gasworks to my right. In case you didn't notice, I did a video about Scotland's gasworks a while back. Check it out. It was a good one. They're not all good. There's some guy moaning about my Guruk video. He said something like, I watch your videos and I usually like them, but I didn't like the Guruk one. Sometimes I feel like telling these folk to just go and take a hike, you know. It's very hard to be nice sometimes. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a YouTube channel. It's not BBC television. Well, bicycles get everywhere, don't they? There's a real issue with bicycles on pavements, and there's even a real issue with bicycles on recognised routes that where cyclists and pedestrians share the route. They've only just opened a new bridge out towards Yoker. And that's what they've got. They've got pavements where there's no dividing line, and as a pedestrian, you sometimes don't know what's coming up behind you. Cyclists, they don't mix. Pedestrians, I've said it before, pedestrians and cyclists do not mix unless you've got a white line down the middle of the avenue. And of course, with some guy, as you saw, he's cycling back on the causeway with his little dog. As you can perhaps see, Cramond Island, like perhaps a few of the islands in the Firth of Forth in this area, it served a role during the Second World War as far as defence was concerned. Not entirely sure what I'm standing in here, but I strongly would guess that it was some kind of gun emplacement, and I think there's probably a few of them. Maybe combined lookout posts and gun emplacements to deal with any German aircraft that had found their way this far. Yeah. So very much, I don't know if the government owned it at one time or another. The band that I was in when I moved through to Edinburgh was called Government Property. There's a good reason for that. but I'll not say what that reason is. Having said that, you may remember that in the way decades ago in public toilets, you used to get sort of toilet paper. It was shiny on one side and sort of flatter or less shiny on the other side, and every single sheet had the words government property printed on it. That was the good old days when the government owned toilet paper. Maybe that's why the country's in such a mess these days. Government no longer gets the money it used to get from toilet paper. If you're listening, Keir, that could be the way to go, mate. Anyway, let's find a nice quiet spot on a rock. We'll have a chat and then the song. I better keep this hat on or I'll be getting burnt alive. Hasn't life sometimes got a way of catching you out? Of giving you an unexpected kick in the teeth? And sometimes it's the smallest of things that can hurt the most. I was in a park near me recently, a month or so ago, and sometimes after shopping I'll go through that park. It's just a little park in Crow Road, and I'll buy a packet of birdseed, big packet of birdseed, and I'll feed the birds in the park. Generally I'll open the packet and I'll sprinkle a little bit in various locations, and I don't do this very often, you know, maybe every couple of weeks or every month or so even. It's not a regular thing, and it is birdseed. The last time I was in the park, a guy said you shouldn't be feeding the birds. It attracts rats, dogs can eat it, and there's a sign saying don't feed the birds. And I thought, right, okay. I mean, I admire the guy. He was an older guy for speaking out. It's obviously something that caused him some concern. But I found his attitude a little bit overbearing. I mean, one, I can understand why some stuff attracts rats. Some of these carry-out places or restaurants, I'm not sure what it is, maybe put out huge piles of stuff on the street. I've seen it at George's Cross in Glasgow. That's going to attract rats. Birdseed, packets of birdseed, I'm not sure. Do rats eat birdseed? I mean, you know. Also, you know, maybe you should be thinking about training your dog to not start eating everything it finds on the ground. As for this, the sign saying don't feed the birds, I went back to the park a few days later, and yes, there was a sign, so the man was right. This sign saying do not feed the birds was beside the play park in the middle of the park. And my question would be, why is it not at the entrances to the park? I'd never seen that sign before. I mean, it may well be the case that the sign didn't apply to the whole park and it just applied to the little area, perhaps just the swing park. And I emailed Glasgow City Council Parks Department, and the usual story, you don't get a reply. You know, as members of the public, we employ these people to do a job for us. And if the Parks Department isn't up to replying or responding to communication, then maybe it's time we get rid of some of these people and started employing people who were keen to do their job. It upset me, you know. All of a sudden I enjoyed feeding the birds, and all of a sudden I'm in a situation where feeding the birds feels like a crime. Yeah, just another little kick in the teeth. When I was in one of the Second World War gun emplacements there was a little remnants of a little fire in a corner of the building, which reminded me of when I was last here, because the only other time I've been here was, I think, the early 1970s. My God, 50 years ago. God and burn it. And we came, all the guys in the band, we came here. We sort of knew you could get cut off at high tides, and I think we kind of came in the knowledge, and perhaps with a deliberate intent, to spend the night on the island. It was all a bit of fun. We'd maybe had some bottles of beer with us and such like. But as darkness fell and the tide swept over the causeway, it got cold, and what started out as a bit of fun became a bit serious. And it wasn't funny anymore. We just wanted to get home, but we couldn't because the tide had covered the causeway. And we spent the night on the island in one of the gun emplacements. We lit a little fire, you know, to try and keep warm. Piddly little fire, it wouldn't have had any effect. But in those youthful days, for some inexplicable reason, I had a kind of joke rubber nose that I would maybe put on every now and then. I think you could attach it to your glasses, rubber nose. I must have thought I looked really funny or something. But things became so serious that I ended up having to burn my rubber nose in the fire. You know you're in a serious situation when you have to set fire to your rubber nose. There's people on my left wondering what I'm prattling on about. Yeah, and when the tide came in, whenever it came in the morning, we all scrambled off and had a big bowl of porridge and went to bed for the rest of the day. An experience, you know, one of these experiences. Yeah. So don't mess about with the tide, okay? I think that's your chart. I'm going to get torn into these. Marks and Spencer, this is not a pie, it's Marks and Spencer's rich, what's that, Rico? I can't see what that says. Something and tomato and mozzarella arancini. The packet's slightly blown, which is slightly concerning. It means something's growing in there. I seem to remember eating these in a boulder at Rannoch a while back, and they weren't very good. They were quite dry, in fact. They probably have to be heated up. So while I kind of munch my way through these, that's it done, I think, basically. Time for the song. I'm not sure what this song is called. It's either called Everything's Broken or Things Always Change. Take your pick. I'm Eddie Burns. Take care, and maybe see you again.
Everything's broken, everything's bust, everything's gone to pot and turned into rust. Nothing's the same as it used to be. The things that excited me I no longer see. Things always change, not for the better. This is a lie in that tear-stained river. It's just the way it all pans out. awake in the morning, when scream and shout, bark at the world, we're all at it wrong. Will it be fixed today? Well, not in the song. Nothing's the same for what I know. It's just a disaster, and we're all gonna fall. Things always change, not for the better. This is our life in a Tuesday letter. Things always change, not for the better. This is our life.